do you shoot the devil in the back? What if you miss?
Do you love thrills, spills, and edge of your seat action?
And like that, he's gone.
Hot goods and cool criminals?
There is no Coke!
A movie with the greatest reveal in cinematic history? How about a movie that had so much profanity that they had to make an advertisement about it?
How many keys you got, mother? What the?
Do you yearn for these timeless and engaging stories? Stories that don't think you're stupid. Stories that put the mystery in front of you and trust that you'll figure it out on your own. Movies that turn a simple heist with low-level thugs into a movie with more twists and turns than a spy movie.
Give me the freaking keys, you fairy godmother brother!
Well, I have the movie for you. In the brief period of American history where the commies were down and America was on top, where the global war on terror hadn't killed our whimsical joy of the world, and the truly talented were able to rise to the top, comes this drama crime thriller, written by the man who would bring you The Way of the Gun and every Tom Cruise movie for the next 20 years.
I say, he'll flip you.
He'll what?
Flip you. Flip you for real.
Yeah, I'm shaking.
An all-star cast. Kevin Spacey, Pre P. Diddy, Gabriel Byrne, Stephen Baldwin, Chaz Palminteri, Benicio del Toro, Kevin Pollak in this multiple award-winning, right out of the gate, classic.
Anybody goes in there is not coming out alive.
There's nothing that can't be done.
It's the story of the ages. Jason and the Argonauts, but with gunfire. Citizen Kane, but with Grit Lawrence of Arabia, but without the need for gratuitous nudity for no reason other than it's awesome enough without it. It's The Usual Suspects, 1995.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Told you I don't watch new movies anymore. I wish I could say it's because I was a boomer who was lost in the 90s, but it's not. I wish I could say it's because movies don't inspire us anymore, but they can. I wish I could say it's because it doesn't have Zendaya or Chris Pratt or Ryan Reynolds, but I wasn't kicked in the head as a kid. One day, they just released a movie, and it was awesome. Not awesome, but the best out of what was awesome.
What the?
The director wrote it himself. He had no IP, he had no big marketing. It was just 90 minutes of greatness, poured onto your lap like nectar of the gods. It's the pinnacle of all-time, perfectly told crime movies from the 60s and 70s that turns an Ocean 11 heist into the greatest of its genre. It didn't need to mash up genres into something new. It didn't need to have $1 billion USAID slush fund to make it shine. It needed nothing. Nothing. But for you to put the phone down and pay attention, and it rewarded you for your sacrifice. So what is The Usual Suspects? It's a simple movie. Criminals are put in a room together, part of a lazy police investigation to take on that one big score. But explaining the movie doesn't do it justice. It's a character study. It's a crime thriller. And it's awesome. Like, dude, this film is perfect. It had its entire formula perfected. A century of cinema, a century of experimentation, a century of deconstruction, a century of reconstruction, and finally, the next generation of hard-working, veteran-working stiffs were given the reins, and they perfected alchemy. They turned lead into gold. And this one does so much right. Like, every character feels like they had a full life and at least 5 other movies before this one. Everybody has an arc, but they don't beat you over the head with it. In fact, they hide it behind some amazing bloody gunfights, so you don't even notice that you saw some of the best writing until like your third view. It was written by Christopher McQuarrie and directed by his friend, you may have heard of him, a guy called Bryan Singer. This guy is exactly the type of person I talk about on this channel. He wasn't some silver spoon trust fund diversity hire. This guy worked in New Jersey as a gumshoe, a detective agency, a goddamn detective. Next to a World War vet turned director, this has got to be one of the coolest and best pivots into Hollywood I've ever seen. It's like Pete and Scotch. It tastes like ash when you first drink it, but after a while, it's the only thing you like. American audiences in the late 90s and early 2000s wanted cheery, optimistic, feel-good stories. In this one, nobody in this story was relatable. Nobody was the good guy. Everybody did some of the worst things imaginable, and it was so good that we didn't know that everything was downhill from here. Okay, pause. Now I hate, and I mean I hate, YouTube movie reviews. The greatest movie of all time, and it's been reduced to AI slop, communist film student extra clever fan theories, podcast spots from comedians turns into actors, and listicles of random babble to steal everything that made this movie great and make a few bucks from AdSense. I never thought I'd say this, but it's actually, I would prefer if Critical Drinker just did one of his formulaic reviews on this one instead. It would be a step up. This stuff is a mess. A big, fat mess. And this movie deserved better. This movie deserved to be watched and talked about on its own terms. This movie deserved to be a review, a retrospective, an homage that goes just as hard as the movie does, but this ends today.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
So what's the theme of The Usual Suspects? I mean, it's a movie that has a simple message. What happens when the worst criminals of their time meet the greatest criminal of all time? The immovable object meets the unstoppable force. It's simple and effective storytelling. You want to know the theme? Fuck you. That's the theme. This will go toe-to-toe with Heat, Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, and every other crime thriller of the last 20 years and comes out on top. You root for the bad guy, and you never felt better when doing it.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
And every character is a criminal archetype. They are meant to make you understand what true evil can be compared to what you're used to. These guys, if they weren't criminals, they'd be mistaken for the team in the Mission Impossible TV series or the gang from Ocean's 11, but with an edge. Stephen Baldwin, Michael McManus. He's a violent criminal with a short fuse. He persuades you with gunfire. He's got charm and a hard edge. Gabriel Byrne is Dean Keaton. He's a crooked cop. He's the leader of this motley crew. Everybody hates him, and he's the pinnacle of a bad cop. He says he's gone straight, but everybody knows better. Benicio del Toro is Fred Fenster. He's cautious and a methodical criminal. He keeps his head down. He avoids attention. He's got charm and wit and a funky accent to make you underestimate his cunning. Kevin Pollak is Todd Hockney, the explosive expert who never backs down from a fight. He's the smallest guy in the crew, but this little dog has a big bite. Kevin Spacey is Verbal Kint, the crippled con man and petty thug. In any other movie, he would have been like the weak and pathetic criminal that gets bullied by the cops and turns rat. He's the guy who's bent on survival with his limited skills. Underestimation is his weapon. And Chaz Palminteri is Inspector Dave Kuyan. He's a cop with a grudge. He has been hunting Keaton for most of his career, and he's closing the case with extreme prejudice. And there's other people. Bit parts that create some flavor. Keaton's girlfriend and former attorney, who believes that he's on the straight and narrow. She's got a heart of gold. Sergeant Rabin's the partner. He symbolizes the law. Get your man, file the paperwork, move on. And then a series of scumbags. Redfoot, Kobayashi. They're all henchmen for the big baddie, Keyser Söze, the hidden evil mastermind that everybody treats like the criminal boogeyman. Who is this man?
Tell me the keys, you cocksucker.
In English, please.
And they don't do setups and payoffs in this film. It's all about the slow reveal. So when the movie starts, Keaton is portrayed as the most ruthless and evil criminal of the bunch. Has he turned a new leaf? Or is it just a smokescreen? They don't tell you. Is Kobayashi the mastermind pretending to be Alfred to a criminal Batman? You don't know. A massive scene of death at the dockyards. Who is in charge? Who's left standing? It's a mystery that hands out breadcrumbs and waits for you to figure it out yourself. And that's what this movie does best. It lets you solve the murder. It doesn't handhold you, nor should it. And then every time you think you got some things figured out, it throws a monkey wrench into the mix, making you question what you know with new information. Verbal, so far, is the only survivor. What does he know? A Hungarian, actually, was another survivor from the explosion, but he's in a coma. What did he see? The evidence isn't clear. Who set this up? It's better when you don't know. Like, your imagination is a far more powerful force than anything a movie can tell you. That's a paraphrase of a line from Alfred Hitchcock, the greatest director of the 20th century. Now, I could explain all the reveals, but there are so many, I'm just going to wrap it all up into the plot here.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
So the movie starts in a dock. There's murdered henchmen everywhere, a hidden figure threatening Keaton off camera, shots are fired. Was he killed? Was he not? 6 weeks prior, a motley crew of all the characters are arrested. Each character shows you exactly what their character is, their characterization in the first 5 seconds of meeting them. Keaton is trying to run a legitimate business deal while Inspector Kuyan takes great pleasure in arresting him and ruining it. They're brought into a witness lineup and meant to deliver the line, "Give me the keys, you fucking cocksucker," for levity. The first reveal.
Good with explosives.
The movie will establish 3 separate threads that kind of carry on throughout here. The first is a Hungarian in the hospital bed who has key information about the heist. Second is Verbal, the only survivor so far, strikes a deal with the DA for freedom. Inspector Kuyan interrogates him one last time so he can catch Keaton, which is his primary motivation. And in the cells, the crew gets to decide on some revenge on the police who arrested them. They're going to rob some corrupt cops running a protection racket from the mafia. It causes a lot of the police, from the chief all the way down, to be arrested. You still have no idea what happened at the docks, other than the bodies everywhere. The Hungarian guy, he wakes up briefly, and he says one name, Keyser Söze. Kuyan and Verbal Kint start to argue. Verbal thinks Keaton was entrapped into this heist and he's going straight. Kuyan tells him that the crime and the murder that Keaton has left in his wake, Keaton is evil, not to be trusted. The crew decides to go together and fence the stolen goods they just got as a way to avoid all the heat. So you start to think, well, Keaton may have planned more of this than we thought. Then the Hungarian, as he's woken up, tells the DA that he saw Keyser's face. You find out that no one has ever seen him before, so the tension's rising. This guy's important. He knows the answer. The crew meets Redfoot. He's the fence. And while they're there, he offers them another job. Rob a diamond dealer, earn some cash. Keaton mentions offhand that he killed Redfoot's friend when they were in prison, and Keaton's going to opt out of this, but the rest of the crew want to be in. Inspector Kuyan puts the pressure on Verbal. He thinks he's lying, and so he squeezes him, pressures him, intimidates him to get more information here. So now you're left wondering, well, what does this all have to do with the docks? The plot thickens. The crew robs the diamond merchant and find out he's actually selling cocaine. There's no money. It was a setup. So they confront Redfoot. He says he was given the job by an unknown guy, and Keaton's like, set us with a meet. We want to see this guy. Who set us up? Kuyan finds out about the Hungarian guy and the Keyser Soze thing. He assumes now he knows that Verbal was lying to him, so he comes in with some new information and he's pressuring Verbal into continuing to tell the story. From the story, the crew meets this guy Kobayashi. He's the front man for Keyser Soze. He says that Soze will kill them all for stealing from him in a bunch of previous jobs, unless they do the job for him. That coke robbery was a trap. It was all supposed to happen in the jail previously, but Keaton's lawyer girlfriend, she was too good at her job and got them all out. So now you're kind of understanding, okay, so this is how the dock goes down. But what happens at the docks? You don't even know yet. The Hungarian guy, he starts talking to a sketch artist. He describes Keyser Söze, but you don't see it. Verbal tells his story. He talks about how Keyser has like indomitable will, a setup where some guys kidnapped his family and to get some of his drug empire, and then Keyser ends up killing his family rather than let the cartel take his business. Verbal tells Kuyan that the only reason he's out of prison is probably because Keyser Soze wants him on the streets so he can kill him and tie up any loose ends. So back to the crew. Fenster decides that he's not in, he's out, too much risk for him, he decides to run, and then they find him dead on the beach. The guys realize that there's no peaceful way out of this. They're going to kill anybody who tries to escape. So they bury Fenster in the sand, and then they decide to take the fight to Kobayashi. At least now they can, if they threaten him, he'll leave them alone. They think this Keyser Soze thing's a smokescreen. It's used to scare them, like the boogeyman for kids. So they do another heist. They sneak into Kobayashi's law firm, they kill Kobayashi's henchmen, and they kidnap him, hoping that he understands that if you come after us, we'll come after you. And he's like, look, Soze's real. They have all of your guys' family, and they're all going to be killed if we don't do the mission. And to drive the point home, they show that Keaton's girlfriend's working for his law firm. So Keaton is forced back in, a reluctant criminal, and the rest of them are going to do the job. The job will happen. Nothing can stop it now. But who's Keyser Soze? At this point, the crew, they scope out the dockyard and they get ready to board the ship. There's supposed to be a coke deal on board and they're supposed to stop it. And then you get some explosions and some gunfire. Hockney grabs a truck that's full of cash, but he ends up getting shot in the back. And then as he turns around, you don't see what he's looking at, but he recognizes who shoots him, but we don't see it. The cops back home find another body washed up on shore that's away from the incident. Turns out this guy was an informant who knew Keyser Söze. So Kuyan knew there was no drugs on the boat. So what was with all the cash? What's with the informant? Is Verbal lying to him? Then back with the crew, McManus and Keaton, they search the boat. There's no drugs. They've been set up. But why? And then you see it. The informant gets shot by Keyser Soze. Where is he? Who is he? The job was just an elaborate ploy to kill a witness. There was no drugs at all. But who's Keyser Soze? So later on, Keaton finds McManus, ends up getting killed with a knife to his neck. McManus is surprised, too. He's not shocked. He's not angry. Something he wasn't expecting killed him. Did he know Keyser? As Keaton checks up on him, he gets shot in the back, too. Keyser Soze finally reveals himself. Not to us, but to Keaton. And Keaton doesn't look surprised. Verbal hides behind some ropes and sees Keaton getting gunned down. So at this point, Kuyan starts berating Verbal. Why didn't you help? Verbal says he was scared. He saw the devil. And Kuyan puts the story together. He knows Verbal is lying. He knows Keaton set him up to be a false witness. He shows through a series of reveals of the past details of the story. He set up Redfoot. He set up the score. He was Keyser Soze, wasn't he? Verbal breaks down, starts crying, and admits the whole thing. He thinks Keaton is still alive and asks Verbal to go into witness protection. Verbal says no, and then he leaves. And then in the final reveal, Verbal gets his belongings to leave. The cops fax over that picture of Keyser Soze to the station. Inspector Kuyo and the sergeant enjoy a coffee, have some banter, and then Kuyo sees the final reveal. Verbal made it up. He made it all up. Kobayashi is the name on the coffee cup. Redfoot, he was a mugshot on the corkboard. And then he gets handed the fax, and the sketch looks just like Verbal. Verbal was Keyser Soze. As he walks down on the street, you see Verbal losing his limp, gets to his car with Kobayashi and drives off, never to be seen again. He told Kuyan exactly what he was going to do. So it's a great murder mystery, and every reveal makes you second guess all the information you had up until that point, until the very end. And this is what it did so well. Like, once you rewatch this, knowing what you know now, it all makes sense. There's no fake reveals. There's no like hidden information. It doesn't trick you. The pieces were all there. You just didn't know to look for them.
Give me the fucking keys, you fucking cocksucker motherfucker!
So yeah, we had a brief period in the 80s and 90s where we didn't know yet how good we had it. We had the best of the best, and we didn't even know. It's so much gold in there. Like, I don't know, man. I just love it, and there's no way you don't. And I'm not talking about in that ironic way that people watch like The Room or Mystery Science Theater 3000, where everybody laughs at how bad the acting is or the CGI or whatever. I mean, I sincerely love it. In the same way that you have comic books creating wonderful stories, there's worlds of sophisticated novels, indie games that are awesome in a world of billion-dollar AAA consumer products, you have a sophisticated drama crime thriller that treats you like you deserve. A smart guy who can figure things out and gives you just enough information to keep you guessing. It's the pinnacle of a fun, great movie that keeps you engaged with the tricks and the tactics of storytelling that have entertained people since before the written word. So enjoy it, fellas, because I damned well did. Cheers.